My warning to our society in general is really centered around what appears to be a two-tier system out of the DOJ. I can't think of a more dangerous approach than to bifurcate the justice system.
There isn't one.
When people do not believe that they have access to an equal justice system, the divisiveness in our society will grow to an intolerable degree, and people will begin to take action. That will not be pleasant type of action that they take. I admire the stands you've taken recently, and it's not just recently. We've watched for a number of years. And yeah, you're a smart woman, you're a brave woman. So I'd like to introduce Congresswoman, Colonel, generally really smart lady, Tulsi Gabbard.
Thank you, Eric and Kathy, for hosting us in your incredible home. Really appreciate it. Eric, I got to give you one piece of critique on your introduction.
Yes, ma'am.
You failed to describe the color of your shirt, your tie, and the color of your suit in great detail. Does anybody not know what I'm talking about? Okay, yeah, it's pretty well known at this point. No, really, thank you very much. And I'm so glad you started us off with the threat of what undermining the rule of law in this country is having and where this path leads. So much of what I've been talking about for a long time now is freedom. And the foundational principles, Constitution, Bill of Rights, that our country was founded on, the vision that our founders had for us, and how the people in power right now, today's Democratic Party, has no respect for any of that. And even worse, they are weaponizing our institutions for their own political gain. They are undermining our freedom of speech for their own political gain, really seeing all of their actions as justified in their own minds because it is a means to their end of holding on to power and getting more power. Whether they realize it or not, that selfish, short-sighted mindset is threatening our future, is threatening the future of this country that we love as we know it. And this is, you know, we hear, as I'm sure you do here in New Hampshire, probably more than anywhere else in the country, as people, candidates come through here, this is the most important election of our time. Every election you hear people saying that. I personally, as I've been involved with politics since I ran for state house in Hawaii in 2002.
As a baby.
Right.
As an absolute baby.
Yes. But from that point on, I've heard this so many times, and I've never believed it. I've always chuckled to myself, like, yeah, okay. But with the direction that we are headed now in this country, and how far we've gone in just the last 2 years, I really feel, and it's why I'm here, that this election and who we choose to send to Congress to hold this administration accountable, to truly support and defend our Constitution, is absolutely critical. Because look at what's happened just in the last 2 years. We still have 2 years left of this administration, and the people within it, within the Department of Justice, the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Education, the Department of Health and Human Services. You go down the list and you can see in each one of these departments policies and actions that are directly affecting us, our freedom, our families, our kids, our security, the safety of our communities. You go down every one of the things that impacts us and most families across this country every single day, and their policies are having a very negative effect. And this is where leadership is so necessary. Because what we, the people, are up against is not just one person, it's not just one party, it's the permanent Washington establishment. It's the politicians, it's the corporate for-profit mainstream media, it's the professional political class in Washington, all who benefit off of their collusion with each other at the expense of the people, at the expense of freedom. And it's why I'm really proud to support Don in every way that I can to try to get his leadership, his voice, and his strength and courage to the U.S. Senate. I've had the privilege of, I haven't known Don very long, but in some ways I feel like I already know him because I've served and deployed with people who he once commanded, in units that he once commanded. And for those of you who've served in the military, the real testament to a leader is what your soldiers say about you when you're not around. That respect is earned through character and leadership, not through rank and title. And before I ever knew about or was thinking about Don Bolduc and running for the Senate, we met a few years ago when I was coming through here, but I heard from his soldiers, and they gave the greatest compliment a soldier can give, which is that Don Bolduc is a soldier's soldier. He is a soldier's leader. That even as he is exercising leadership and strength and courage now, and we know that he will, when you sent him to the U.S. Senate, he was doing the same thing in the military. His soldiers knew Colonel Bolduc, General Bolduc has my back. And he put his own career and his own reputation going to the mat for the well-being of his troops and doing what was right, and suffered professionally as a result of that. There are very few leaders I've come across in the military where I have not heard somebody complain about them. Serious on it. But now coming and spending some time with Don just here over the last few days has only proven what I had heard about his leadership to be true. And I don't say these words lightly, and I wouldn't say them if they weren't true, that I have full confidence that he has his priorities straight, that he has lived a life that has put country first, and that going to the swamp that is Washington, that very quickly sucks people, and even good people with good intentions, if they don't have that backbone, that strength and courage, and that intentional focus every single day on what is my purpose. My purpose is to serve the people who hired me and to work for what's in the best interest of the country first. Good people, if they're not making that choice every single morning when they wake up, they very easily get sucked into the swamp. That will not happen with Don Bolduc. He's shown throughout his life that sense of purpose, showed it through his actions. He's continued to do that throughout this long campaign, and I know that he will continue to do that when you send him to the U.S. Senate. He has my full support, and I hope that you will continue to support him and try to bring along those folks, whether they're independents or some Democrats who may be slightly disaffected, as I am. We need everybody to recognize real leadership that's not attached to one party or another, but real leadership for America.
Thank you all for coming, and Kathy and Eric, thank you so much for having us in your home, and those that were responsible for putting this together, thank you all so very much, and for your support. I can't tell you how humbling it is. You know, the primary was a victory of the people, it was a victory of we, and it was the first step that we took to bring back self-governance, to bring back the importance of we the people that has so desperately been undermined and put our country in the wrong direction. And our values and principles as we see them in the Declaration of Independence, of life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, the idea that we get from that, the sense of don't tread on me. And that's a warning to the government, right? Don't tread on me. And that's nothing the government is doing everything to tread on us. And they're doing it through, with, and by political leadership on both sides. And I have to be honest with you, both sides. And it's having a very, very bad effect on people, on Americans, on Granite Staters. And we can see that, and we can feel it. In 2 years on the campaign trail, I have talked to men and women and children and college students and high school students and elementary school students, everybody. Everybody from every, political party, and from the young to our precious elderly, and every town and city in this state have taken that time to listen and to learn. And quite frankly, career politicians aren't doing that. They believe in power and money. They believe that all they have to do is go to Washington, D.C., get in bed with special interest lobbyists and the wealthy political elite, and everything else will be guaranteed. The re-election's guaranteed, the re-election after that's guaranteed, and so on and so on and so on. And our primary win, I think, was the first step in saying, no, not anymore. We're going to look to send people down there that are different. And nobody exemplifies that in my mind more than Tulsi Gabbard does. She gave me some very nice compliments, and I am humbled to receive those compliments, but she is every bit of what she said I was. And that's why I am very, very grateful to have her support. And we together demonstrate right now that if you're focused on our values and principles, and you believe deeply in our constitutional republic, and you believe that our country is going in the wrong direction, and you believe that that is the decisions of people there that are more interested in their own success and not yours, and taking away our energy independence, and creating inflation, and hurting everybody across the board, and then hurting our country by opening its borders and by creating a standard for illegal immigration, and undermining our education system, undermining our family institution, undermining our political institution, our finance and economic institution, and now our military institution, by the numbers. We can see what they have done, and they need to be held accountable for it. And there is no better way to hold them accountable for it than on 8 November. But I need everybody's help. And we got to do what Tulsi said. We have to reach out to those that we know don't generally vote for a guy like Don Bolduc because of all the ads that are out there that are lies about my position on abortion and wanting to stop Social Security, which is insane, hurt Medicare, which is even more insane, and it's just absolutely not true. And so, we're going to combat that over the next couple of weeks before the 8th of November. But I'm out there. I'm talking to everybody. I'm exposing myself to everybody. She is not. She's hiding. She's done 2 Zoom calls as part of her campaign trail last week and this week. This week was a Zoom call with the VA up in Vermont. I guess she's running in Vermont. She can't show her face in the VA really too much in Manchester because they all really know she hasn't done much for veterans. And let's say why. And I throw that out there and she'll tell you she passed this and that and the other Band-Aid solution. But we have over 30,000 service members in our military that have committed suicide from 2001 to 2020. 30,000, that's 3 divisions. We lost 7,000 during that same time frame in combat. Think about that. Combat, 7,000. Suicide for not protecting our service members, doing the things that we owe them, taking care of their mental health, physical health, and spiritual health. That hasn't been done. That hasn't been done. 8 years in the Obama administration, I can tell you, it didn't get any better. And President Trump, like him or not, tried to do his best. But unfortunately, everything he did has been reversed by the Biden administration. I almost said Biden, and I guess that's yeah, the Biden administration. And think about, while we sat here today, every 65 minutes, a veteran kills themselves. Every 65 minutes in this country, one veteran will kill himself. And it's because they're not being taken care of. And we're removing them from service because they won't complete the vaccine mandate, which we know now not to be necessary. Over 20,000 we have removed from service. 20,000 honorable men and women. And we're going to fix that. So I say, we have a direction problem in this country, and we also have a problem with self-serving career politicians who are not making the right decisions and creating an economic crisis where there doesn't need to be one, an energy crisis where there doesn't need to be one, which fuels the inflation, and then open borders, which is fueling the opioid crisis at 200% increase here in this state. And let me tell you why that's really something to really consider. Lawrence, in the 3 avenues of approach into New Hampshire from Lawrence, a distribution center, is now connected to Manchester, and Manchester has now become a distribution center for fentanyl and opioids. And that's not very far from any of us. And Manchester is the ideal place for people to get, come in, distributors and drug dealers, and get all that stuff not only out into greater New England, but all over the state. And they've done it successfully. And if you have children in college, you need to warn them, because they're stamping fentanyl, a kill pill, that looks just like Adderall.
Yep.
And they're selling it. And they're killing our college students. They take Adderall to stay awake so they can stay awake for 24 hours and study, and then go in and take their test, right? And so we got to be careful of that. And Halloween, our children, the look-alike candies of Skittles, Sweet Tarts, and Nerds. This Halloween, my grandchildren who come every year to trick-or-treat in our neighborhood are not going to be able to eat candy en route like we used to let them. Right? It's going to be, nope, not till we get home. We can check every single piece of that candy, particularly the colored ones, because they found them in Maine. And if they're in Maine, I think it's logical to say, although logic is something that escapes us today, that they're probably in New Hampshire, in other places in New England. And that's very, very dangerous for our children. And when you have a platform where you say, well, I take care of women and children, and you allow the opioid crisis, and your recent vote in the Senate to not give our police additional technology to find opioids, then she's absolutely wrong. What is she doing to fix this problem, right? And then we have human trafficking, $13 billion cartel business. Men and women are paying exorbitant amounts of money to get here. It's because of the policies. Of course, now they're trying to flip that and say it's our fault because we're saying the border's open, right? Well, the border is open, but it's not our fault, it's your fault, right? So they're trying to, play word games with that. And they get raped, they get murdered on their journey to this country because of our policies. And that's unforgivable. And so I don't know how she or Biden or anybody can look at the American people or anybody and keep their head up, right? I just saw him eating an ice cream cone. Everybody should be able to eat an ice cream cone. But not when you're saying our economy is strong as hell and it's everybody else's fault, not mine. And that's really, really wrong. So the direction, as Tulsi talked about, and the fact that we are implementing policies that's weakening this country need to stop. And we stop that by sending people down there that are going to work for you. And that's my vision. My vision is to work for you. 100% for you, for Granite Staters, to be your ambassador in Washington, D.C. Because what Tulsi said is absolutely true. I stood up for the men and women in my command when the general officers above me didn't think that was the right thing to do. But they don't know the right thing to do. They're my people. I'm closest to them. I do know the right thing to do. And so no matter what pressure they put on me, I push back. They don't like that. right? But I will go down to Washington DC and do just that. Because the only people that can say they don't like it is you. And if you send me down there, that's because that's what you want me to do. And Senator Hassan just won't do that. And so I promise you I'll do that, and that's my vision. To change the direction of the country by staying dedicated to our values and principles and standing up and saying, these values and principles mean something to this great nation, and saying, listen, we got to change this economy. We got to become energy independent and doing those things that we need to do. And I believe that every public servant in Washington, D.C.'s mission statement should be this. And this is mine, and I'll end on this. We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice and ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare for ourselves and our posterity, for ourselves and our children and our grandchildren, because it's not better now, it's only going to get worse. Do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. And that's a mission statement. My mission statement. I believe if I do all those things and dedicate myself to all those things, I will do the right thing to you, for you. And when I do a yay or nay in that chamber, it will be with your best interests in mind, which she does not. She does a yay or, that's the easiest job you have in Congress, is to walk in the chamber and hit yay or nay. The hardest thing, though, is the next day, understanding the reality of that and how that hurt people. And then going out and having the intestinal fortitude to face them, which she does not have. She won't debate, she hides, she does Zoom calls. She just did a spaghetti dinner Zoom call with the Cheshire County Democrats. I don't know how spaghetti dinner Zoom call works exactly, but that's what she just did. So you can't hide, and you have to account for what you've done. And it's the same thing for me as a general. When I make a decision on the battlefield that results in casualties, I have to account for that. And I have to account for that in front of the mothers, fathers, daughters, sons, grandchildren, moms and dads, everybody. I have to look at them. I have to write the letter. I have to face them. And that's hugely important, right? So, and I did that. And I won't shrink from my responsibilities to the people, whether it's comfortable or uncomfortable, right? It's what I owe you, and it's what I'll deliver. So God bless you all and your families, and God bless America. Live free or die. Thank you very much.
Croc TV.